Good morning.
Good morning. That's what it is.
Yes. Back for another episode of the Life Bros. I'm Jon. This is T. What we do here, in case you didn't know, is we like to take a little peek outside the box that we seem to be, trapped in, get a little uncomfortable, have some uncomfortable conversations, and challenge the social norm a little bit. And what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of dive in a little bit into what led to this point, who we are as individuals. Some of you guys don't know who we are. We just come across your timeline, just some random guys talking shit about life. Who are we? What got us here? What we had to get through to get to the mentality we talk about a lot, which is that I don't care mentality. Why we're so intent on challenging the social norm, going against the grain a little bit, and bringing some humor to it. Like, why do we do what we do? Why are we here? Why are you watching us? What are you going to get out of this? And all that stuff. So I'm going to let T go ahead and start off here, right? Because I've takes the tension off a little bit,
Yeah, well.
Puts the pressure on.
All right, so I feel like I'm in an interview here with, who am I and, what have I done? So, here we are. I don't even know if we tell. We're in Cleveland, Ohio. We're currently sitting in what we call the Mullet, which is kind of our pseudo office / conference room / bar playroom. You can see it here. It's been built over time, but to give my life story, God, it's ridiculous. I am the ADD, ADHD specialist, shiny object syndrome kind of guy. From day one, I think I hit the ground running with the idea that I want to try that. I think that sounds like fun. Oh, wow, I should do that too. So I've had about 100 careers, and from everything under the sun, it's just who I am. I see something, I see an opportunity, so I go after it. I've done 4 or 5 careers at once, and if you don't believe me, ask my wife; she'll tell you. It's been a wild, fun ride. I would tell my mom what she'd say, "Will you just slow down?" My famous line with her was, "Mom, if life was a river, I always want to be in the rapids because that's where the fun is." Just when things started to settle down and go easy, I think, nah, this is boring. And, whether I did that consciously or subconsciously, it was time to move on to the next big thing. But I think, timing and everything that I've done, I've always had the same attitude of, why not? What's the worst that can happen? Where I have some people that look at me and go, wow, T, I don't know how you have the balls to do something. And I don't even think that I have big balls. I think it's probably more on the stupidity side. Like, I don't know enough of the new area to think it's dangerous or it's dumb or I could lose everything. So I say, fuck it, let's try it. And trust me, I've done some dumb things where I have lost everything and had to start over. But it built up the mindset for the next time. We're like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Again, like, screw it. We'll go back to square one again and we'll start over. So it's been a journey, and along the way, there's been a lot of struggle. And I think that struggle has made me who I am. I am a guy that, and you'll see, I'm pretty serious when I need to be. For the most part, though, I am just all about having some fun, finding the stupidity of what we're working on, or where's there a joke? Anytime there's a joke, I'm gonna find it, and keeping it light. Big proponent of people who have rock solid self-esteem. Love it. I don't understand how people don't enjoy themselves or love themselves. I'm big on. It seems like I acclimate to those people that in a room are alive. They're ready to go. I want to be near them. I love it. It's infectious. And a lot of times people say I'm that person, but I think that's what I love most about this is it's just a conversation. We're finding some topics. We're finding some stupidity out there, and it's stupid to us. You may listen to our topics and think, God, these guys are too critical. And maybe we are, but when you think about it, the shit we talk about, it's like, really? Why do we get ourselves so worked up? So that's why I love being here. It's a discussion of just why. I can't say it enough. I say it all the time. And if you sit with me, I'll ask you a million questions just because I'm curious, not because I'm being nosy. So
look, that's it's so funny because when we sit here and have these conversations, we talk about where we come from mentally. You say it all the time about how this has been a mindset for a really long time. And for me, it's like the total opposite, right? Like growing up, like I was so, I don't want to say isolated, but like so withdrawn and so apart from, like I felt alone. And I was like that shy, quiet kid in class. I was always judgmental of myself. I dealt with like depression for since like fourth grade, just like really low energy life, and that led to some different places, but like I wasn't a high energy, outgoing person. I cared about what people thought of me. I was critical of myself, right? And it's just like over time, I was an incredibly serious person, and I would mask it under the fact, like under the jokes. I would use, humor as the outlet.
Yep.
So like there was always that part of me, like the witty, part that would always try to make things light so that I didn't hurt so much. And what's crazy is like this whole mindset didn't occur to me until over the last like decade. Right. And a lot of people know, like, I'm still a pretty serious person. Like I get pretty serious, and I get serious because the stuff that we talk about is stuff that, one, I either struggled with myself, or two, I see other people struggling with it in my life, right? Like we talk, like a lot of the stuff that we talk about here is close. We talk about how close they are to us.
Right.
And we try to pick topics that we have an emotional investment into, because it's a great place to come from to show the transfer of how it's become. And so, you say that stuff and it's like, man, that's great, because I used to be afraid of everything, and it's cool to be able to sit here and say, like I had to go through a lot of shit to reach this point in my life where I could sit here and have a serious conversation with humor and laugh about it and pick apart life and be like, wow, like I used to be that person. Like I used to be the person that used to like whine and complain about things. I used to be the person who would go over the top about stuff that really didn't matter. And for me, like that's what this is about, right? Like this is about the fact that so many people take all these again, this is personal opinion, like in life today, our society, we take petty things too seriously and serious things too lightly because they're hard, right? And for me, it's about finding that middle ground and finding the humor in the stupidity of the way that we're living, and in the way that we go on, and trying to break free from what I personally dealt with, and being able to try to help somebody else find that as well, and stop caring so much about like just stupid, like just the stupid absurdities of life that keep us trapped in these tiny little, and that's part of the intro. Like for me, like that part of the intro is great, because it's like I feel like so many people are trapped in this tiny little box.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing is this is what I like about the humor. It's like we're trapped in this box. Okay, we take a peek outside, we get outside just to hop in another box. It's like, oh, well, this box is bigger. This box is a rectangle now. Oh, this box is a circle. Oh my God. And then we think we're doing something, but we're just like trapping ourselves in other boxes. And so like, I find it fun. Like you find it fun, like pointing that stuff out and like just calling it for what it is and making fun of it is like one of those ways to break down the barriers, So
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool that, that's where we come from.
No, I'm with you. I think it's we say making fun, and in today's society, we are so damn critical of making fun of anything, and oh my God, and we talked about this on a couple of the episodes, but to me, humor fixes everything, or at least it lightens the moment. And I don't know if you're born with it, whatever, but I've been the class clown. I won class clown in all the different schools I was in, and whatever. And it wasn't that I was Johnny Jokester or practical, whatever it was. When someone says something dumb and everyone in the room's thinking it, I just, for some reason, didn't have the filter to not call them on it. And again, it wasn't mean. I wasn't a bully. I wasn't anything. It was just funny. And I see it. It's amazing and almost inspiring to watch. But like that was my dad. My dad is fun loving that way, and you don't see it until later on. You become that, and then now I have 3 boys, and my boys are all especially my oldest son, Matthew, he's the same way. Like he's witty, he's fun loving, he's laid back, he's whatever. And it's like, okay, is that a genetic thing, or is that he's watched his dumbass dad that kind of takes life really serious on one side, like business and getting shit done and working hard and always being the guy that works the hardest in the room, to holy shit, we could probably turn this into a really good event, and we could laugh about this, and hold on, let's go get some beers and let's turn this into a party. And those people look like they're bored, so we should invite them over. And before we know, we got 10 new best friends, and because life's a party. So I see that moving through. And now, I just posted something yesterday on Facebook about my two younger boys, and they were enamored at the fact that they just shaved their heads, unbeknownst to my wife and I. So and for us to walk in, they were overjoyed. I mean, smiles beaming, because maybe it was an authority thing, but they just said, screw it, we're cutting our hair off. And they did. And I loved it. And I thought it was hilarious. And that was my first reaction. No angst whatsoever. Like, nice, you cut all your hair off. I mean, it looked crazy, but it's like, I have this mindset that, like, okay, let's go with it. Let's go with the flow. And I think I see that in my dad, and I see it in my other children. And it's so much easier to go through life when you're not so freaking caught up in all the bullshit and the nonsense. It's why we joke about half the stuff we talk about. Like, how do people get so deep into their thought where it upsets their life and makes them crazy? And like we talk about triggering and all the other nonsense. Like, Jesus, just wake up and smile. Like, how hard could it be?
Well, that's the thing, though. For a lot of people, it's really hard. It is, because like they train themselves to be that way. And I hate to say that, but like, that's the reality of it, right? Like, we're all being conditioned. Sure. It's just how we're being conditioned, right? And we're conditioning ourselves to be lighthearted. I say it all the time. This is one of my favorite things that I say about how I want to live, right? And I talk about being childlike, right? And you can get religious and talk about the Bible and how it like says, until you can become like a child, right? And I look at that non-religiously, and I say, wow, like, how great it is to have that innocence about you, to have that open mind and be that sponge and be curious and all that stuff. And, I relate it, I say it like this, like, it's great to be childlike, but childlike doesn't mean childish, right? And so that's where I think it's funny, because we talk about being lighthearted all the time and trying to find the humor and everything. But like, we also talk about strategy and having a playbook, and how, what fits the playbook, and what is my playbook for life, and how do I go about that, and how do I get from point A to point B, and how do I do all these things in between. And at some level, you kind of have to be serious about that. And we talk about it in some of the episodes about having a focus, having a purpose, having somewhere that you really want to get to. But, like you said, like, along the way, what's wrong with waking up in the morning and just being happy? And just being like, isn't it easier to think the best of things than to think the worst of things?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, isn't that easier? Like, when you think the worst of things, and this is one of the things that I learned along the way, is like, regardless of which direction I go, we talk about creating stories and narratives all the time. One way or the other, I'm creating a story. One way or another, I'm feeding a story, right? So it literally is like, what story am I writing? What story am I creating? What point of view am I taking my life from? Because if I wake up in the morning and I smile and I have fun and I laugh, it doesn't mean I don't have to take things seriously. It just means that I get to approach life from an amazing, beautiful angle, rather than a miserable, like, bent out of shape, like, oh my God, like, and then you start focusing on all the little petty things, right? Like, you could have walked in the door with your kids shaving their. My kids do stupid things all the time, right? And my reaction is like, I saw this post the other day, and it's like, when your kid does something and you laugh when you're supposed to be angry. And my first reaction was like, well, if I'm laughing, it's probably not that serious.
Right.
And if you're not laughing and I'm laughing, like, you're probably taking it too seriously, right? Like, my kids swear. I don't like it when they swear, but sometimes they say some stuff and I just can't not laugh, right? Like, right. And this is one of those things, like, society would look at that and be like, oh my God, you let your kids swear? It's like, I don't let them swear, but I'm not going to get bent out of shape. Like, I have other things to worry about.
Right.
Like, why is that even a thing? They're just words.
Yeah.
They're just words. I was at a meeting last night and somebody used a word and somebody got offended by it. And I'm like, it's a word.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, whether it was a bad word or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, I have other things to concern myself with. And so, like, I go through life and I see these things and people get mad at them. I just laugh, It's just like, that's hilarious, right? Like when other people get angry, like road rage and stuff, I giggle.
Right.
I do, because I think it's so silly. It's like we get ourselves so worked up about things, one, that we can't change, right? And I'm really big on that. It's like, if I can't change it, why am I going to sit here and stress and get pissed off and angry and create this tower of lies to myself so I can continue being, so I can go home and tell my wife and get angry and hold this resentment and hold this grudge, and it changes everything about the way that I do things in the day, right? And like, I don't think we understand the effect that negativity has on our lives, right? And so for me, it's just like, oh man, dude must be having a bad day. Like, I'm good. Right. And, so situations like that, it's hard not to laugh now. It's hard not to sit back for a second, right? And I talk about sitting back, and I mean the ego when I say that, right? Like, just sit back for a second and just stop reacting so much and just have fun, right? Like, if you really want change, make a change,
Yeah, but if you want to make change, I think that's where I believe I've always said, okay, if you want to make change. It's a choice. We've talked about choices in here. We've talked about everything. I have lived probably to a point where people get sick of it hearing it from me, especially my kids. Like, literally every morning we have this choice. I can wake up and say, all right, I have the world in front of me. It's, it's endless opportunities. And that's how I wake up. And everyone's like, oh, that's such bullshit. It's not. That's okay. Well, then you choose your way. Wake up, be angry, kick the dog before you walk out the door. Do whatever it is that pisses you off. Look at your home or your car or whatever it is that sets you up. Like, I don't even like this. Then fucking make it change. And I think that's where I look at it. I probably make too many changes. But I don't know that I would change it. It's who I am. And I think that the positivity, giving you more background and everything, is I went through a struggle that's probably one of the hardest. And everyone's got struggles. But, at a very young age, I was married, had 3 beautiful, wonderful kids. And then out of nowhere, my first wife is diagnosed with brain cancer. And for the next 16 months, we chased it all over the country, trying to find cures, trying to find everything. And she died. I mean, to have your wife, best friend, sick, and then she's taken from you, and you think, holy shit. And again, choices. I had a choice. Okay, I could be depressed and down in the dumps, and don't get me wrong, there were days where it was like, wow, this is not right. This is horrible. But I had 3 little kids, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old. Like, in that case, I thought, I don't have a choice. Like, they don't have a mom. So dad's got to step up and do the chores and do the work and do the everything. And it just makes you stronger. It really puts it on you. And people are like, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how I did it either. But I do know one thing. I woke up every day saying, let's go. I don't have a choice. I have to do this. Well, that just took over my life. That was 20 years ago. It took over my life to a point where it was like, okay, if you say you don't have a choice because you've just made that decision, we're going forward. This building we're sitting in, I said, okay, this is a dream. I'm just going to make it. And I never looked back, and I never looked at it and said, okay, I don't know how I'm going to put that in there. And 2 months later, it was there because I had that vision and I moved forward. And I think that's where I've pushed and pushed, because I've used past experiences to say, why not? Let's give it a whirl. And along the way, it was always with this attitude that I carry of, fuck it, let's do it. This is going to be fun. And I always wake up and go, I wonder what fun thing's going to approach today. And trust me, the road rage and all of that stuff, I've been that guy for a second. For sure. And then I laugh it off. Like, did you see how upset you got with that? I literally look in the mirror and go, you're a jackass. Like, why? Because the guy was going to get 1 car length in front of you. Let him the fuck in. And then I laugh and I'm talking out loud like, I'm sorry, I'm an asshole. But I think that's what it is and I try and stress this, and you'll hear this with me in each of our conversations. Like, what are you doing? Like, is there a plan? Like, I have plans. Most people wouldn't think, because I have 400 plans going on at once. Especially my wife. God love her. She's super great because she deals with my ass. But it's, look at my plan. Did something knock me off course where I'm pissed? Or did something knock me off course and you're going to think I'm really crazy because I was supposed to be knocked off course? Because the universe said, hey, jackass, that's not going to work out and you're not listening. So I'm going to knock you off course so far that you're back on the right course of what it is the universe, God, whoever you want to call it, says this is what we really intended.
I love that, because one of those things that I do this for, and the words are the universe. A lot of people think the universe is out to get them. Mm-hmm. Right? We go through life and woe is me, and oh my God, I can't believe this happens to me all the time. This is always something. It's always something. It's always something that's happening to me. Right? And then you have the other people who are always looking for what it's doing for them. Right? I talk about it all the time. Right? Is it to me or is it for me? Mm-hmm. Right? And people like us, it's always for me now. Right? It used to be borderline, I don't really know, but like everything now I look at as, how is this going to help me? And it's, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, right? Because you talked about your wife and all this stuff, and I go through life, and a lot of stuff has happened in my life to where, like, you know, I experienced a lot of pain, right? And I look back at how I used to blame the world and everybody around me and how much of a victim I was, right? But today, what's cool is I get to look back at all that stuff, and it's like, wow, like if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned this. And if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have the strength that I have now. I wouldn't have the resilience that I have now. I wouldn't have the courage that I have now. I wouldn't have the humor that I have now. I wouldn't have all these things, right? Like, it sucks. Like, these things suck in life, right? Like, these things happen and they're not good, right? They don't feel good, right? But a lot of people don't want to hear, and they do. They think it's bullshit, right? You sit there and say, wow, you know, like I went to prison. It's something that I openly talk about, right? Like I went to prison for an extended time, and I talk about how it saved my life. If that never would have happened, I never would have found the path of spirituality. I never would have found the path of, you know, philosophy and all these things, right? Like, and so I look back and it's like, yeah, that sucked, right? And all the things that led up to it sucked. But if they didn't happen, I probably would have died, right? One way or another, like I would be dead. Right. Or back or whatever. Right? And like, so you look at stuff like that and people are like, oh, that's like, you don't understand. I don't get, it's like, no, I do get it. Right. It's all the same stuff. Right. I'm sorry that you have to go through it. But I just hope you find what I found on the other side of it. And which is a beautiful life, a fun life. And the curiosity that I know this is a little bit on a tangent here, but you mentioned something about curiosity. And I love this because this is what so much of this is about. It's just asking why, right? And being curious and like, I wonder what's going to happen here, right? I can't tell you how many times I just like woke up and I'm like, oh, this, like you said, like this sounds like a good idea. I'm going to go run with it. Mm-hmm. Let's see what happens, right? And it drives my wife crazy. I totally get it, right? Like, and our wives yeah. are, I just want to put this out there, like our wives are amazing because they put up with so much of our shit. Yep. Now, so like the ADHD, that leads to action taking because we don't just have ADHD. We also have the ability to follow through on a lot of these stupid ideas. Yep. And it's great because it is like, I love being curious now. I love asking questions. I love getting to the thick of things. I love exploring things and asking like, why? Like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are things like this? Why do they have to be this way? Do they have to be this way at all? Like, can I change them? Can I do this anyways? Like, okay, like all these things could go wrong, but man, like what happens if things go right? Mm-hmm. This would be freaking amazing. Yep. Right. And then like, if it fails, cool. Like that's just the universe putting me back on the path that I need to be on anyways. Right. But like, I think my higher power, whatever it is, wants me to explore life while I'm here, you know, and have a I'm not like a partier. I don't party. I don't drink. I don't do drugs or anything. My thing is just like exploring life. Yep. And finding joy in the little things and being grateful and having fun, right? And just like connecting with people, like all this, like it's just great, right? You know,
I think that's a gift though, and that's the part that when I sat on a plane, God, this has been so long. It's probably 25 years ago, heading down to Atlanta. We get stuck on the tarmac there, and we're waiting, and then there's a guy sitting next to me. I don't know him. He reaches into his little backpack that he had in front of him and he pulls out a sub sandwich. I mean, this thing was humongous, probably a 12-inch, like not a Subway or not a, you know, a Quiznos or whatever. Someone professional made this thing. It was friggin' amazing. And, you know, I looked at him like kind of side eye, like, what the hell? And he just said, I fly a lot. I'm used to this. So I prepare for it. I'm like, well, good for you. You're prepared. Well, just because of the weird sandwich thing and everything, we started talking. And his name's Dr. Noah St. John. and didn't know I was going to talk about him. And he's out there. You can find him on the internet. But he, as we were discussing, because we sat there on the tarmac for a couple hours, then it was a flight down to Atlanta. So he said, "You're a 3%er to me." And I said, "Well, what the hell's a 3%er? And you're probably in this too." He said, "A 3%er are those individuals in the world, in society, that they just do shit. And they don't know why they do shit, and they don't know why they're good at it, and because they just do it. And they think the other 97% could do it too. But," he said, "there's just this certain thing about you that either," and these are my words, not his words, "that we just don't give a fuck enough that it's going to fail, or we're just so over the top excited about giving it a try that we just do it, and then success comes and it comes easy." But it's not that it came easy. It's like our curiosity keeps pushing us to say, "All right, let me ask one more question because I think I'm almost there." And before you know it, if you look back, you really asked 300 questions. Each question brought you closer to whatever it is I was shooting for. And he said, "So you're a 3%er." And as he explained it, I was like, "Yeah, I kind of think I know what you're talking about." But when I walked away and started other things, it like clicked. I get it. Like, I don't know why shit works out. I don't know why I seem to always be in the right place at the right time. I don't know why I meet the individuals. I mean, how the hell did we meet? Total random. Just different things like this. And I'm a 3%er. Was I born with it? Did it just show up? I have no idea. And that's what he was joking about. He goes, "You 3%ers don't understand. You don't understand your how you think. You just assume everyone's like you, and yet 97% are not." So I don't know if it's a gift, if it's a whatever, but it's what I do. I don't care. And we've said that a lot. I don't care, probably to the extreme that it probably seems like I do care. As dumb as that, or profound as that may sound, is I look at something and say, "Why not? I'm going to give it a try." Because if I fail, I don't care. I mean, the table that we're sitting at right now, I built this. I'm not saying I built it to be the coolest guy in the world. I went and looked at tables at some of these fancy places, and they were like $1,400 to $5,000. I'm like, that's ridiculous. So $88 in wood and $300 in epoxy, and voila, there's a table. If a table craftsman came here and looked at it, he'd probably be like, not that great. But everyone else walks in like, "Oh my God, it's amazing." Like, but again, I don't say it to say, "Oh wow, look at me." It's more or less like I started it, and it took me too long to make because I started and stopped 85 times. But it's like, I don't understand why people don't have that same, like, fuck it, let's just try this. What's the worst that could happen? We throw all this in the garbage?
Well, but that's the thing is people hyper focus on the worst that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's a gift, right? My gift, I'll go back to it, is like, my gift is I've been at the bottom. I've had nothing. I know what that feels like.
Oh yeah.
Nothing that I do now is ever going to be that bad. Where like, if I fail now, I lose my house, I lose my car. Okay, cool. Like, I have put myself in a position where my kids are never going to go without.
Right.
I will, I might, but I really don't care. Right? Like, I will find a way to get back up because that's just the skill that I've developed, like resiliency. I've failed so many times, dude. I've failed so many times, and I still think success is right on the other side of that door.
Yep.
Right around the corner. Every single day, there's an opportunity every single time I open that door. Right? No matter how bad things get, no matter how low my income is, or my bank account, or my energy, or the people around me don't believe it, or any of that stuff. Like, success is still right there.
Yep.
It's gonna happen. And it's crazy like that. And you said it, right? Like, I do. This is me, and this isn't like it might be an ego thing. I don't know, but like, I do. I look at the other 97% of people, and I'm like, why aren't you? Why not? Like, they tell me the things that they want to do, and I'm like, well, just do it. Well, 87 excuses, right? And it's just like, dude, like, do you want to do it or not? Because if you don't want to do it, that's cool. You don't have to do it. But like, why not? Why not do it? What happens?
Right.
Like, what happens, man? Like, really, what is the worst that happens? Well, I lose $500. I'm like, okay, go to work. make $500 back.
Right.
Right. We are in a time where opportunity exists literally every. Go DoorDash for 2 weeks. You'll make $500.
Right.
Right. You can't tell me that money is the problem. You know, and so approaching life from that angle is just it's hard now because again, I used to be the person who couldn't see success, and now it's like I love how you said it's like, how the hell did we meet? And I look back and I'm like, how the hell did we meet? Right. And I look at the story and I'm like, dude, if you would have told me a year ago that we'd be sitting here and talking on a podcast and stuff, like I probably would have just giggled and like, okay, like that sounds great. Cool.
Right.
You know, but it wasn't really part of the plan, you know? And I remember when maybe it was a year ago that we started talking about stuff like this. And, you know, this is a prime example. We didn't know what we were doing. No idea. I had no idea what any of this stuff was. Like I used to be in bands all the time. I never actually used like a mixing board. I never like sat here and tried to figure out all the editing stuff. I didn't know how we were going to set this up. I didn't know how to sit in front of a mic and talk in front of a mic, right? Like I've done speaking stuff, but like never like this. And you know, it's so funny that we talk about like the table and we're building a table back there and we're doing all these things. And it's like every week we have these conversations like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm still going to do it. No idea. Right. But like, how many things have you figured out along the way? Like I talk about it all the time. It's like, I have learned so much over the last decade by just saying, I'm going to find out. I don't know how to do that. I'm doing all these like house projects now. And it's funny because it's just like, I'm not certified to do a lot of this stuff. Right. But who cares? Right. Like I'm learning, I'm getting online and I'm learning. I'm like, this is going to be fun. I want to do this myself. I'm going to be so much prouder of the outcome. It might take me a little longer, right? You know, but it's just so cool to just like go into something and be like, wow, this is going to be an experience to learn, to have fun with stuff, to maybe fuck something up, right? I joke with my wife all the time. Anytime I touch anything electrical, I'm like, oh, hey, honey, by the way, I didn't blow up the house today, right? Like, just so you know, right? I know, and it's you know, it's fun, and again, it drives her crazy, but you know, I'm just like always one step away from a 911 call,
right? Yeah,
but like I love it.
Yeah, you said something that clicked for me, and I think I don't know if it's a rule of life or whatever, but I didn't grow up with much. 5 kids, New York. You know, it's tough. Both my parents worked. You know, did the best they can to support us, but we by no means were the family that had stuff. You know, that we had enough. We had a great family, had a blast, but from a material thing, we didn't have anything. So, you know, at a very young age, I learned, okay, if I want something, mom and dad can't provide it. They're providing as much as they can right now based on what they did. So I worked early, 11 years old. I had my first paper route to tie a basket literally, it was the old school, tied a basket to the front of my bike and went out and delivered for Newsday in the afternoon and helped my older brother deliver daily news in the morning. And that was at 11. And the ice cream man loved us because we bought everything from the ice cream man every day because I was making scratch. I mean, $100 a week for an 11-year-old, that's some dough. But that evolved into the next job and then the next job and then the next job. And I just grew hungry where it was like, wow, all I got to do is work. All I got to do is make money. And it's probably why I had the shitty attitude in school. Like having teachers tell me, oh, you know, it's about grades. It's about this. It's about that. And I'm like, fuck that. It's not about grades. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and then I got curious and I'd find out how much teachers make and I'd find out all this. I'm like, wow, I could study really hard and I can go to college and I can pay all this money to go out and I can come out and make only that much money when I, as a, you know, a laborer work for a construction company at 16, 17 years old, they're paying me, you know, half of what a teacher made. And the only reason why it was half is because I couldn't work full time. I'm thinking, this is crazy. You're pushing me for grades. You're pushing me, but all I got to do is work. And then I learned and that grew. But my point in bringing this up is now I've gotten to a level financially where I've provided to my kids what I never had. And it's not a bad thing, but it's almost the opposite. Now I watch my kids and think, I wish they would have had a little less. I wish I would have not given them as much so that they had that drive and that energy. And don't get me wrong, my kids, they drive. They have my work ethic, but there's still that and I don't want to say entitlement because it's not it. It's still that ease of saying, hey, it's my birthday soon. Can I have a laptop? Like, a laptop? That's rich. Like, yeah. Or my son, hey, my Xbox is only 2 years old. It's 2 years old now. Can I get a new one? Like, that's amazing. Like, it just rolls off their tongue like it's no big deal. Where it's fearful to me that's what I've created. And I still have my humor back. Like, yeah, you can have an Xbox. Go freaking buy yourself one because I bought you one. I'm never buying you another one. But it's still the upbringing, knowing that money was tight, created this drive for me to always want to work harder. And I look at my brothers and sisters, they're all successful, crazy successful. And I think a lot of that was my mom and my dad pushing us in a way that we didn't see. It wasn't a heavy discipline house, but it certainly was when you work, you work. Like, there's no half-ass work. Like, you're all in. And that's never left me. I had bosses, like, they'd make us go back and redo a job because they didn't like it. And when I say redo a job, if it was mowing a lawn, you'd go back and redo the whole thing, or you'd go back and clean up. Or if it was construction, like, no, I don't like the way the drywall went up, the mudding and taping, rip it all off. Like, holy shit. And guess what? We weren't getting paid. So it was like, work harder, get your shit done, and do it the right way the first time.
Sounds like you were raised with standards.
I know. Go figure.
I know that for those that it's a foreign concept too. Those are what we strive to live by.
Right.
That's, and yeah. So you said something which really comes back to what we're doing here, and it's the years of experience of looking around and questioning why we have these preconceived ideas in society, these rules, these traditions, this culture, like why they exist, and why we are just so intent and content with following them to the letter. And anything that goes outside of that is wrong, and is ostracized and is judged. And right, like if you're not fitting the mold, then you don't get along with everybody. You don't fit in the group, right? And you see it in every, and I talk about society on macro and micro levels when we talk about this stuff. It's like you have the society, the macro society, where we follow certain rules for certain reasons. And then you have like the mini groups. We talk about like the 5 people that you keep closest to you in your social media and all that stuff. And it's like, if you don't fit the mold in all those micro categories, you're different. You're I don't want to say bad, like bad in a certain way, but like you don't belong. You can't get along. You can't get by. You're not successful. You're not enough. You're all this stuff, right? And like, so we sit here, and one of the fun things we like to do is we just call it out. Just call it for what it is. Like, why the hell do we do this to ourselves? You hate it, right? And we talk about those 5 people. And one of the topics that we really haven't talked about yet is like, we sit in friend groups of people that we don't like their views of, but because they're close enough to us, we just accept it, and we talk about it, and we fit right in, even though we go home like, oh my God, I can't believe Jenny did this. Like, oh my God, like why? Oh, she's always downgrading me. She's always calling me fat, or whatever. It's like, but why? And we question these things, and this is where it comes out, is like a lot of us, I've noticed on a solo level, start to question these things. Why do I do this? Right? But are too afraid to speak up. And that's where we come in, because we're not.
Right.
I'm not afraid to say the things.
Never.
I'm not afraid to ask the questions. Right? Because that's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we have fun. That's how we explore life. Right? And you said having the balls. Like, I don't even feel all that courageous when I do it. It's just like, why? What do you mean why? What do you mean? Like, right. Why aren't you upset about this? Like, well, because I'm trying to figure out why I should be upset about it. Like, if there's a reason I should be upset, I guess I'll get upset about it. But if it's just because you're upset about it, not happening.
Right.
Right. Like, why? Yeah. I'm not just going to do things because I was told to do things. Like, I mean, I'm not going to kill somebody. Right. Like, I understand those rules. Like, right. Don't kill, don't rob, don't steal. Right. Like, I get that.
Right.
But everything else, it's like, You brought up college. We talked about college. It's spending money on all this ridiculous stuff, raising our kids certain ways, and all the rules about like fitting into the norm in sports and all this stuff. And it's like, all we do is say the things that I think most people think.
Oh yeah.
And put it on blast, right? That's why I like the roast, right? Like we just roast it. We just like, for lack of better words, like we pick a topic and we talk shit about how stupid it is and how if we just sat back for a second and saw how stupid it was, maybe we'd be a little bit more free to enjoy life and not be so worked up and upset and see that life really isn't all that bad.
No. You know? And I think it comes back to we say it too much, and we're going to actually have to come up with this playbook that we've been talking about. Is I am so enamored by people that just follow their own shit, don't give a flying hell what the hell people think, and I think it's this, and I've grown to this point now where when you get married and you start to have kids, it's like you've built your own little empire. And when you buy a home, you have your castle. And if you remember back to the times of when castles were there was the drawbridge and the moat that was around it. And that was like kind of like your security. And what went inside those walls was your castle, man. That was your shit. That was your fortress, and no one questioned you. They almost put you on a pedestal like, oh my God, that's Castle Lois. Like, wow, those people, they have whatever. But when you stepped outside of that, you were open to, getting killed, getting, blasted, whatever it was. And I bring up that metaphor strictly on, I think we forget that when we step outside and we enter someone else's world, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, they may judge you, they may whatever, but your castle is your castle. Like at the end of the day, the people that are inside your walls are the most important thing. And why are you worried about everything that's going on the outside? I think that's where social media has created this horseshit concept of what each of us, the life that we're living, and we want to now exemplify what they do. And then really at the end of the day, you're like, do you really know what's going on inside their castle? Like it's all fluffy horseshit. And I think I've grown to the point where I know that. I see it, and it's amazing when I make new friends. Normally, and this will be funny. Normally, the new friends that I make, especially with the guys, and I'm not one that goes out and make friends with girls, but with the guys, I seem to attract assholes. The guys that no one liked, the guys that kind of are a little bit louder, or they say what they think, and most people think they're douchebags. Mainly probably because I'm that guy too. Fun loving and everything, but I see past their bullshit, and I think they're great dudes, super loving, caring, amazing, wonderful guys, because I know inside their castle, if I walked in and tried to harm them, they would beat the living tar out of me because their world is so freaking awesome. They're not going to let anyone upset it. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but my thought is this, is that, I see in each person what they see in themselves. They just don't know how to show it. So, my buddies, and if you saw us in a group, everybody like, Jesus, they're obnoxious morons having, laughs and da-da-da-da-da. But each one of them in their own way is this amazingly awesome person, because I see it in them. And the more I see it in them, the more they let it out. And, our relationship, it's like, okay, we met randomly and you were the guy that was stoic and standing in the gym and training and doing your shit. And it was like, wow, that guy's a hard ass. And through time, it's like, nah, he's just a schmuck like me, has the same kind of thoughts. He's still a goofball. He's still everything else. And I think that happens because, at least from my world, I'm looking for it. Most people just put that barrier up and say his castle door is up. He's not letting anyone in. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to rip the door down. I want to see what goes on behind the walls. So I get to learn that. And that's when I pull out the greatness in the people and think, oh, wow, they are fun loving.
Dude, it's so funny because we talk about the RAS and the playbook and all this stuff. And it's like, everybody believes in manifestation and attraction of energy when it's negative.
Right.
It's easy to believe like we just attract all this, like this is just how my life is, right? And we don't know that's what we're saying. But when we talk about like attracting other like certain energies, everyone's like, no, that's bullshit. It's like, no, it's not. Like I'm the same way. Like my friends are all, I don't want to say the same because we all are the same with the mentality,
right?
But we all have our own like beliefs, and that's what's so cool about it. It's like it's one of those, our group of friends, my group of friends, right? Because all my friends aren't friends with each other, all have different views. And you don't see that a lot. A lot of the time when you see circles of groups of people, it's all the same. Like everybody talks about the same exact thing, you know, from my experience. And it's fun because like we all disagree about a lot of stuff and we all still joke with each other. Like we joke with each other about it and all that stuff. And a lot of people are just like too afraid to have those conversations. And it blows my mind that we're not all like that, but we do. We attract energy. And you talked about the playbook, and I want to just mention that, right? Because one of the things that I think happens, and this is one of the things that we address, and this is why we address the things that we do, because what we've seen is that the people who end up getting worked up about all this petty stuff and let it control their lives, and they just try to fit into the crowd and they don't want to go against the grain, don't really have a destination. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's hard not to talk about that because it's like we talk about the playbook and like, what is the playbook? It's about having a castle. It's about having a domain. It's about having a purpose. It's about having a destination and being able to walk outside and to all the people like, oh my God, like that window up in the corner of that castle is like kind of crooked. And like, did you build that yourself? Oh my God, what's that color? Like that color is not really all that great. It's like, oh my, did you let them in your castle? Like, did I just see that person walk in through the back door and like all this, right? Like you walk out and you hear all this stuff from the I don't want to say peasants, but you know what I mean? Like all the peasant minded people. And it's so funny being able to just like walk out knowing what the purpose of the castle is, right? And like when you start building something and you lay down the first brick, nobody can see it, right? Except for the person building it, who has the plan, who has the layout, the vision, who has the vision, right? And you go into we do it all the time. Like we went down and checked out another building down here, and it looks like shit, right? It looks horrible, and the whole time it was all like, oh my God, this would be so amazing if you did. Most people walk in there were like, oh my God, like I have to do all this work. It's like, because most people can't see that, right? But if you have a plan, if you have a vision, if you have a purpose, if you have something to focus on that's positive, right? Like you don't get caught up in all the silly little things in life that everybody else does, you know? And that's what the playbook, it keeps us focused on what we are supposed to be doing, taking the things serious that we need to be taking serious, and everything else is just funny, right? Oh, you don't like the window? Like, I don't care. Right. Oh, no, you don't like the window. Like, you don't like the color of my bedroom. Like, I'm the one that sleeps there. Right. I don't give a shit. Right. You know, like, but we're like, oh my God, Jenny and Fred don't like the color of my bedroom. Right. What am I going to do? Like,
what were Jenny and Fred doing?
They're going to paint it. Right. They're not going to paint it. They're going to hire a painter to paint it for them. And then they're going to invite them over again, the people that just criticized them. And they're going to invite, I use it better. I don't know why anybody's inviting people to the bedroom.
I was going to say,
I know, I guess we're in a different
world. That's fine.
You know, it's the new times, man. But they're going to invite them back over and try to impress them. You know?
Right.
Like, oh, look, you guys changed the world. Like, who cares? Like, I got stuff to do. I got things, places to be, things to see, people to meet, experiences to have. Like, outside of my castle, I'm going to go out there and do what I need to do. But everything else, like, I'm going to go back to my castle every night and I'm going to grind away at building the most amazing vision of my life that I possibly can. Right. Because I have one.
But I think that's the struggle of people's vision. We keep talking about playbook and plan and everything. My vision is freaking stupid. I see shit and my running line is 15 seconds in my head, you'd be tired all day. It doesn't turn off. And I say that mainly because, like John said, if I went to a building, because we've been looking at buildings for the gyms and different stuff like that and all these crazy ideas we have, and you see a shithole. I mean, it's just a box that's garbage everywhere and everything else. And I immediately go into awesome mode. Like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, and everyone's like, you know how much money that will be? Like, yeah, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm in vision mode. Yeah, it could be, we'll add it all up as $3 million. Like, oh, okay, maybe we got to slow our vision down a little bit. But the idea is that, and I watch people, some people have conversations with me and I can tell they're like, they kind of, when a puppy hears a weird noise, they twist their head like, you're doing what? And I think some people look at me like I'm a fucking idiot. Like, what? That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. And then other people kind of look at me and think, I'd like to do that. Well, that would be pretty great. I mean, what's that going to take? And that's that 3% thing I come back to. Like, I don't even think of it. Like, okay, let's just do it. And they look at me and I call them 1099s or W-2ers. If they're a W-2er, they have a job. They show up every morning. It's 8:00. I punch in. I do whatever work I do. And at 5:00, I punch out. Whether you physically punch in or out doesn't matter, but it's the metaphor. And to step outside that and say, okay, well, now that you left at 5:00, let's get hopping now. Because if we want to start a separate company and start making some extra money and some side gigs, and they're like, yeah, but what do you mean? We got to work? Like, yeah, you got to work. Like now it's you time. Before it was work time. Now it's you time. We're going to build something for you. And it's that next, well, but that's the time I like to sit and relax because I just worked. Like, I know, but you keep saying you want this thing. Like, I just built something. You want that too. Like, well, that's a part of the playbook. Like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice X to get Y. No. Okay, so you don't want to do it in the evening. So Saturday and Sunday, that's a whole beautiful, wide open 48 hours. Like, we could kill it. Well, no, it's when I do this and that's when I do that. And that's when I shake my head and go, I'm so confused. I'm so confused that you want, but yet you're not willing to give. And this will bring up one of my other famous things. Like, it drives me flipping bonkers. If you have something, if you see people out there that have something, they've probably sacrificed a shit ton to get it. So don't judge because they have a big fat house or they have a nice car, or they have a whatever, and they're showing off of their weather. They've worked their balls off probably for 20 or 25 years. And then all of a sudden it paid off. And they now have the ability to buy things, to pick up things. I mean, I'm 52 and it's probably only in the last 5 or 6 years that the money there was more money left at the end of the month because of all the hard work that I put in, because there were plenty of months, especially with my own businesses. It was payroll day. It was every other week. And guess what was left over for good old T? Zero. But it looked great on the outside. Look, he's got this big fancy company and he's rolling. He's like, no, I was struggling to make payroll and I made sure all my employees got. And there were times I went 3 months without a paycheck. And everyone's like, how'd you do it? Oh, I'd load up a credit card and I'd load up this, and because I just didn't have it. And that happened up and down and up and down. And I bring all that up to say, you can't look at something and think, oh, it just happened. He's so lucky or whatever it was. I had a playbook. Sometimes it was in pencil because I drew something up and thought, oh, that's not going to work. And I erased it and started over. But it was this overwhelming urge to get to the next level where I was willing to do it. Whereas I watch people and they'll say, I'm not willing to do something. And because I'm not willing to do something, it's not fair. Don't get me started on fair. So I mean, I'm circling the drain on this whole topic, but really what I'm trying to say is, I think my message in all this and what I've done and what I still try to do is I look at something and say, why not? Let's make a plan. Let's see how realistic that plan is. And let's take 2 or 3 steps. I don't look at the plan and say, fuck it. I'm not doing it. It's going to be too hard. I walk into that plan 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps and go, okay, this may be rough. If we're going to keep going, we have to keep going. But I certainly don't look at anything and say, no freaking way I'm doing this. I will sacrifice, even if that means like I am up every day, 3:30, 4 o'clock, because that's the time. Like, let's go. Let's push through it. I don't want to hear that it's 5 o'clock. We've ended the day. Like, push. If you want something, push. If you don't want it, and then you want to bitch about it, I don't want you in my circle.
Yeah, I did. Chronic complainers drive me crazy.
Right.
We talked about the other day. It's like there's a difference between venting and like just being one of those people that's just constantly once, unwilling to sacrifice and just complains all the time about not having the things that they want. I think one of the biggest points there too is most people are afraid to take that first leap and dream,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just to even have the initial vision. We settle way too easily, way too quick.
Yep.
Right? It's like, oh, well, this is all I could do. It's like, what all do you want to do?
Right.
And people are like, well, it doesn't matter what I want to do. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's like, well, you're definitely not going to be able to do it if you say you're not going to be able to do it. I mean, how many times do you got to say, I can't do something before you believe it? Once. That's it.
Yep.
One time, I can't do that. Okay, cool. You just sold yourself
it
on
goes
some
back
bullshit.
To can't or don't want to.
Yeah. And so it's cool. Yeah. So that's all the stuff that we I think we gotta probably start wrapping up.
Yeah. No.
That's what a lot of this all comes down to, right? Is the mindset, how we got here, how we hope to continue making this so that, I do hope that the other 97% of people see this stuff and they're like, wow, maybe I can overcome this bullshit story that I've been creating in my head, have a little bit more fun in life.
Yeah. I think it comes down to a couple of basic things. The first one is be willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
My famous line is get uncomfortable or get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, then bitch all you want. It's always going to be the same. If you want to wake up and think, I wonder who's going to kick me in my balls today, it's only a matter of minutes before someone kicks you in your balls because you're looking for it. It's saying, I want something, and want is not a material thing. Want could be a relationship. Want could be to be a better dad or a better mom. Want could be, I want to be more connected with God. It's whatever it is that you want. What are you willing to do? And I guess where I'm at on all of this conversation and what some would deem as success in my world is, what are you willing to do to get it? And what are you willing to give up? And give up is not necessarily a time thing or a financial thing. It could be a relationship thing. Like, this person's holding me back because of their negativity and they happen to be a close family member. Like, give it up. It doesn't mean put them out on an island. You're never going to talk to them again, but they're limiting your abilities to get to a destination of what you're looking for. And I think that's our successes. What we have sitting here, not two dudes that just were handed the golden spoon and said, look at how great you are. We've been kicked in the balls so many times. We're used to it. And we've been down and hell, I don't even think that I'm out of the water as far as, there could be something coming up that who knows, but I still run at it with the attitude of, okay, it's probably going to bring me closer to something else that I didn't think I was supposed to do. So it's looking at us and thinking, all right, we're going to have some fun with some conversations and call out the stupidity. But I think we're calling out stupidity just based on some life experiences where we put too much emphasis in something that wasn't worth it, that now we can look back at it and go, God, that's stupid. And now we can correlate that to some other stupid things that we may or may not have done, but we look at it and go, that's so dumb. And we call it out. So, I go back to each of you that are watching this and say, call us out. Call us out. If we bring up a topic and it's near and dear to your heart and you're the opposite, well, let us know in the comments.
I love being called out.
And if there's something you want us to call out because you just know how ridiculous it is, again, whether you leave it in the comments or you know us personally, you want to give us a shout or send us an email or whatever, please follow through. There's plenty of things we can talk about and goof off and be stupid about. But, the hope for you is wake up today, wake up tomorrow with a plan, pencil it out, draw it out and see what it is. And again, whatever it may be, do it. But follow through. John figured out how to do podcasts and do all this mechanical fun shit. There's cameras all over the place and there's shit and lights and how do we learn YouTube? And
oh God,
it's amazing. But 3 months ago we had an idea and here we are filming our 7th or 8th or 10th. I don't know what this is.
It's the 10th.
So it's follow through on what it is you want and say, fuck it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And that's us.
Yep. I'm just trying to free the world, man. I'm just trying
That's
to
our big
free the
plan.
world, man. Free.
Yep.
You know?
So that's our show today.
Yes. Don't forget, though, to make sure that you subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all of this
Yep.
amazingness.
Peace out, guys.
Yes, take care.